So I wanted to read the foreword and possibly the entirety of this book right here. It's already been amazing. I started reading another Alice A. Bailey book. I have read Treatise on White Magic, Telepathy, some of Esoteric Astrology recently, and I was hitting this wall with it. I felt like I wasn't quite ready for it. There isn't an order to some of her work. And I have letters on Occult Meditation, and something just told me to start reading this book, Esoteric Psychology. Right? Psychology is this big thing right now too for me. So I start reading it, and the foreword is really one of the most amazing things that I've read in a long time. And it got me thinking on strategy. So anyways, I will share this with you. I will share what I intuit as the next step, and see who comes forward for this idea here. So anyways, this book is called Esoteric Psychology, written by Alice A. Bailey. It's an occult book from the Theosophical Society. I'll read the back really quick. From the point of view of esoteric psychology, evolution is the evolution of consciousness by which the embedded fragment of the soul within the personality progressively identifies its spiritual source and becomes at one with it. So the word atonement is heavily prevalent, where we say it's when we become at one or at peace. Starts with a poem by Robert Browning. It's pretty trippy and dense. I'm going to skip that. There is a quote from The Secret Doctrine, which is Madame Blavatsky's work, one of the leading works in the occult studies and theosophy. And this quote says, "Matter is the vehicle for the manifestation of soul on this plane of existence, and soul is the vehicle on a higher plane for the manifestation of spirit. And these three are a trinity, synthesized by life, which pervades them all." And that is from the third edition of The Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, page 80. All right, I'm going to jump over to the foreword here. This is written by the Tibetan, who is the master that Alice A. Bailey channeled in her work. So these are channeled message writings. So this is a foreword written directly in the tongue of the Tibetan. And in the beginning of each of her works, there is also an extract from a statement by the Tibetan, which was published in August of 1934. I'll read that afterwards because it gives some framework to who this individual is, their background, their level of, you'll see. I'm just going to get to the foreword. And who sticks around is going to be there for a reason, I trust. Because that's why I'm doing this in the first place. Foreword. The question arises each time a book is written, which is to be read by earnest aspirants. What line of instruction will carry forward their training with the most speed? For speed is an essential factor. If the present day unfoldment is to be rightly utilized and the stress and strain in the world relieved, the teaching to be given must likewise increase their mental competency and lead to that stabilization of the emotional body which will most rapidly set them free for service. It must be remembered that constant study of papers and the apprehension by the ear and eye of statements anent the ageless wisdom serve only to increase responsibility or produce brain fatigue and staleness, with subsequent revolt from instruction. Only that which is brought into use in the life is of practical value and retains its livingness. Sincerity is the first thing for which those of us who teach inevitably look. Right away, I had to slow down and read that whole thing over very slowly a couple times. It was very powerful for me. I saw that this is basically like a magical intention being set by the author, who's again the Tibetan, who is the channeled master that Alice A. Bailey got or delivers these teachings through. And so I found 3 magical intentions that were set by the author when writing this book. One of the first ones is that they set the intention to instruct with the most speed possible. So through reading this book, it is embedded with an intention that the recipient, the reader, be able to learn with the most speed. The second intention is to increase the mental competency of the aspirant or the student or the mentee, however you want to look at it. Because the study of these studies are for world service. That's the point. They're looking for the group of world servers that's going to manifest the plan. So the second thing it says, the teachings must be given in a way that can increase your mental competency. So first of all, it's going to help you to learn this quickly. It will increase your competency as you read. And the third intention comes from this next paragraph here. Let me remind those I teach through these books that the main result I look for is one of group cooperation and understanding, and not that of individual benefit. By studying and reading with care, a group interplay is set up. The group becomes more closely integrated, the units in it more closely linked together, and as a group more closely blended in the unfolding plan of the Great Ones. We are building and planning for the future and for humanity, and not for the personal unfoldment of any particular aspirant. The individual growth is of no tremendous significance. The formation and development of a band of pledged aspirants, trained to work together and to respond in unison to a teaching, is of real moment to those of us who are responsible for the training and for the preparation of the group of world disciples who will function with freedom and power in a later cycle. So it mentions the words earnest and sincere and responsible when speaking of the aspirants and the students and the disciples. The masters were known for not just working with anyone, right? So you have to go through certain tests and certain assessments, basically, and dedication in order to be taken on by a master. But here makes it clear that the third intention is to assemble a group. It's not about the individual. It's not about one person. The third intention for this book is a result that he's looking for a group cooperation and understanding, and not that of individual benefit. One of the first lessons I learned when studying some of Alice A. Bailey's work and some of these occult studies is that you have to empty yourself of the need for yourself to be bigger than the plan, because it does connect all of us. And so the group work is a huge example of that, because they're assembling a group for a reason, and it's crucial here. So they're looking for those who are earnest, those who are sincere, and those who will take responsibility. And what it says above is just that the act of just studying this, these are not small books, and the idea is that it's going to be either, he says, it's going to cause someone to apprehend, which means to understand, by the ear and eye, statements about the ageless wisdom. So like they say, a common phrase in the occult is the eyes to see and the ears to hear. You develop those when you are earnest and actually come into rapport with the teachings. And when you do that, you increase responsibility, it says. Or if you don't have eyes to see and ears to hear, you will grow fatigued. It will produce brain fatigue and staleness with a subsequent revolt from the instructions. That's almost like, I feel, a an undertone, an undercurrent, like a spell, like it's saying, for those who this isn't for, it's going to fatigue you. I intend for it to fatigue you and for you to find it stale. But those with eyes to see and ears to hear, it's going to increase your responsibility, help you to learn the material quickly, help you to assemble the right group, and help you to be a service to the unfolding of the plan of the great ones. And you can discuss later what might be the plan of the great ones, but we're going to continue here because it kind of goes on and touches on that. And he says that the group, the reason why they have to go to such lengths to discern and find certain individuals to dedicate, who are dedicated to applying this, is because their intention is to set this group free to function with freedom and power in a later cycle. These individuals will have freedom to use these powerful teachings, and they will have power in their application of them. So you're not going to give this information freely and be so, well, I'm reading it now, but there's no fear, because again, these are laced with magic. These words, spelling, cursive, writing, the spoken and written word. So there's invocations built into this. So those who are meant to see and learn and take on things and grasp it are going to get it. And so my intention is to kind of break it down so it becomes less dense, and hopefully see that there's really some amazing and very doable instructions here, that this can actually be applied, and maybe a group can be assembled to actually go through this material together. So moving on, he says that the most important thing also is that these people don't seek to grow for themselves, for their own benefit, because they're going to set this group, again, free to function with freedom and power in a later cycle. It says, you see a tiny portion of the plan. We see the plan as it unfolds for a series of lives ahead, and we are today seeking those who can be taught to work in group formation and who can constitute one of the active units in the vast happenings that lie ahead, connected with that 2/3 of humanity who will stand upon the path at the close of the age, and with that 1/3 who will be held over for later unfoldment. So this is important here, because it's talking about how you're going to stand 2/3 of humanity. The humanity is going to be broken down into this configuration. 2/3 who will apply and walk the path, and 1/3 who will stay behind for later unfoldment. That's definitely what you can see right now, is a splitting off of people. People are splitting off in very critical times, and it also says at the end of an age. 2/3 of humanity will stand upon the path at the close of the age. We're changing in ages right now, right? Shifting to the age of Aquarius. And then 1/3 will be held over for later unfoldment. This could be seen as those without eyes to see and ears to hear, those who are not choosing to grow in consciousness or see a way forward or unlock old programming and ways of being and different scripts and things, the patriarchy and lots of stuff that we see everywhere. We are training men and women everywhere so that they can be sensitive to the plan, sensitive to their group vibration, and thus able to cooperate intelligently with the unfolding purpose. It is a mistake to think that the plan is to train aspirants to be sensitive to the vibration of a master or to the hierarchy. That is but incidental and of minor importance. Here again, they're just driving home the point that this is not about connecting with the masters. So essentially, like Alice A. Bailey connected with the master in order to channel this information. So many people that have been studying this stuff for years get very caught up in the masters. Oh, there's Master Moria, there's Master such and such. And they get caught up with kind of magnifying the importance of the master and trying to be some sort of guru in their own right and get the honor and the privilege privilege. They have respect, obviously, because they've studied and they've put a lot of work in, but they're still thinking of themselves, trying to be the one who's selected to work with a great master. And he's saying here that the idea is they're training you to be sensitive to the plan and the purpose rather than to a master, getting your head focused on the right things. You may come into contact with a master as part of your training. And again, in one of the other books that I read, the idea of group work is also heavily telepathic. So you can get into rapport with a group telepathically as you read and study and do the meditations and things like that. You start to have this ability to pick up on a group vibration. But this can be very physical as well. Students, aspirants, mentees, it's all the same. If you do the work, whether it's physical or mental, it's still here written instructions. So it's worth a shot, which is the idea that I have, is to actually study this, to people who are dedicated, to seek others who are actually earnest and sincere and responsible enough to do a study of this literature together in small groups and see what happens. It is for the purpose of training aspirants so that group awareness may be developed that these books have been written. Recognize clearly that you personally do not count, but that the group most surely does. Teaching is not given only in order to train you or to provide you with opportunity. All life is opportunity, and individual reaction to opportunity is one of the factors which indicate soul growth. For this, the training school of the world itself suffices. Really driving home that point. You personally do not count. Sorry. That's triggering for a lot of people. Absolutely, it's not saying that you don't matter and you don't count. It's just saying to understand that we have to banish selfishness, greed, competition, the profit motive. All of those things that have its tentacles wrapped around existence right now has to be unraveled with the resumed awareness of atonement, at-one-ment, the oneness and unity of all things, that which connects and overlaps all people. Spirituality, the occult, theosophy, this is what it's teaching, is to reharmonize with the plan, which was always more divine, a divine way of being and a divine way of seeing things. So the group represents unity consciousness, represents connecting with others through your gifts and understanding that you're working together towards a definite aim, which is resuming the plan on earth. I have this bookmark. It has the great invocation, which is spoken 3 times usually at each occult group. And one of the things, the last things that it says is, let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. So that's what this is about and what it's moving towards. And that's what the group work effort is for. So you have to really empty yourself of any vanity in that process, because it's not about you. It's not about me. Someone was just saying that to me recently. This is a message, and people are starting to pick that up in their different ways. And I thought that this was a freaking amazing just introduction or foreword right here. So I'm really excited to read the rest of this book, but so much so that I wanted to share this already before I finished it, because I'm looking for partners to read with, basically. There should be in all impartation of truth, no imposition of authority. Aspirants must be left free to avail themselves of the teaching or not, and spiritual work must go forward because of the free choice and self-initiated effort of the individual student. So again, just like in the excerpt on the Tibetan that it gives in the beginning, it's basically giving his credentials, saying why he's a master, but also saying, don't take anything that I say at face value. I fully expect that you check and apply all of these teachings. Don't accept anything just instantly, which is what society heavily tells us the opposite, right? The news, take that as fact the second you hear it, right? That's got to be correct. Politics, that's got to be correct. They've got to be telling the truth. Industry, you name it. The health industry, the educational systems, all kinds of things. take everything at face value. These are authorities. Respect authority. Police. We're looking at a lot of these things right now, these systems where it has been wrong that we have just accepted an authority without questioning or checking to make sure that they were still pure. So he says, there should be in all impartation of truth. If it be truth, there should be no imposition of authority. And you should be left free to avail yourselves of the teachings or not. It's your choice. And spiritual work has to go forward because of free choice, self-initiated effort. Someone sitting down and doing the work and applying this stuff is why you become in rapport eventually with a master or with a group, is because you set the intention to do so. You disciplined yourself. You became earnest, sincere, and responsible. And therefore, your vibration was sent out, and you were then visible by the energies of the masters or by the vibrations of life experience to attract understanding, eyes to see and ears to hear, so that the stuff could make sense and gel for you and move in your life, so that you then could apply it. Because it says that you're only responsible, and the only way that it can become a living, only that which is brought into use in the life is of practical value and retains its livingness. Like Stephen Covey says, to know and not to do is not to know at all. It's not enough to just read and regurgitate information. It's not enough to just know things. You have to actually apply them and live them, act as if, and it brings it alive. It says it makes their true value and livingness of the work. So the self-initiated effort of the individual student is of most importance here. In the books already published, 3 basic lines of teaching can be traced. First, a relatively new technique has been given as to the control of the body. This is talking about this book, Letters on Occult Meditation. Letters on Occult Meditation. Second, teaching has been given anent the formation of the new group of world servers. Third, the general lines of the magical work of creation have received attention. The first line of teaching concerns the individual and his development. So how developed are you? Can you sit for an extended amount of time and control your focus? Can you break out of the societal programming of lack of attention, inability to stay focused on one thing for a given amount of time? This is what it's taught through the meditation practice. I haven't read that one yet. I'm excited to. The second indicates the nature and ideals. So that first, whether you can do that, the degree to which you can focus for an extended amount of time indicates the degree of individual development. The second indicates the nature and ideals of the group into which he may find his way if he profits by the teaching and learns to control. So the second teaching was about how to form the new group of world servers. And it says that this indicates the nature and the ideals of the group. So you're not going to just be in any old group. There's a specific group that you become into rapport with, just like there's a specific group who I'm going to study these teachings with, because of the nature and ideals of those who become the units of that group. The third, could you but realize it, details in some measure the methods and modes of work during the coming new age. And this is about the magical work of creation, which they teach the creative process, essentially, how to manifest. Ponder upon these 3 main approaches to truth and think upon them with clarity of thought. Mental appreciation of their significance will produce understanding and will likewise increase the group apprehension of the teaching which I have sought to impart. Any student who thinks clearly and applies the teaching to his daily life is contributing most valuably to the group awareness. Oft an aspirant says to himself, of what real use am I? How can I, in my small sphere, be of service to the world? Let me reply to these questions by pointing out that by thinking this book into the minds of the public, by expressing before your fellow men the teachings it imparts, and by a life lived in conformity with its teaching, your service is very real. Sharing this information is part of a mission. This is how, in small spheres, we can be of service to the world, because the spoken word is a vehicle. The words are already, they did their magic with them. It just needs to be sent out into the ether, and then you will vibrate and become in rapport with those who are part of your group, or if you're part of the group of New World Servers. Take all of those words away and just make it simple. A student of consciousness, a student of psychology, a student of human evolution at this critical phase that we're in, at a turning point in society, at the coming of a new age, right? It's all synonymous. This will necessarily involve a pledging of the entire personality to the helping of humanity, and the promise to the higher self that endeavor will be made to lose sight of self in service, a service to be rendered in the place and under the circumstances which a man's destiny and duty have imposed upon him. I mean a renewal of the effort to bring about the purification of all the bodies, so that the entire lower man may be a pure channel and instrument through which spiritual force may flow unimpeded. You become a vessel. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. I'll read the full invocation towards the end. It's actually part of the excerpt on the Tibetan. I mean the attaining of an attitude wherein the aspirant desires nothing for the separated self, and in which he regards all that he has as something which he can lay upon the altar of sacrifice for the aiding of his brethren. So this concept in the occult, in the dark occult, the idea of sacrifice is bloody and grim, right? You have to give something in order to prove your allegiance and to pledge. This is not part of the dark arts. This is just psychology, right? Esoteric psychology. It's still hidden, occult, which means the unseen, unknown, hidden, not common knowledge until now, because who's going to stop us from sharing this information? It's time. You know, there's 2/3. 2/3 will walk upon the path. 1/3 will stay behind. So you must desire nothing for the separated self. And that act of sacrifice in the purest form is to be detached in a way that is so not self-serving. Self-service, they say service to self versus service to other. You understand that you're giving of yourself to a plan. You become a pure channel to act as if, to live as if. You're given powers to manifest. Again, you're going to be free to act. You're going to be let with freedom and power to act in the next cycle. So we need to trust that you will be able to act selflessly, not to some, like Ayn Rand talks about, what is it? The idea of, I can't think of the word, but when we basically sacrifice ourselves for everyone else and the greater good and blah, 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 but it really has this negative connotation to it, because it's this idea that you don't matter to a point where you're toxic to yourself essentially, and that you let everyone else win and succeed while you fail. Some sort of idea of suffering and struggle inherent in allowing others to, thrive. This isn't about that, because that concept is built in with this idea of competition, lack, a mindset, and a paradigm that's of the old way. So that's not what we're talking about here. We're speaking about assembling with the 2/3 of humanity, the 2/3 of humanity that will also have these gifts and will also be tuned into these things, and who's going to pave the way for the 1/3 that's left behind. They're going to come too, but they're just probably going to, because they're going to go their suffering route, because that's the consciousness and the psyche and the system that they are under. That's the spell that they are under. So they will endure and continue to play that out. But there will come a time, if they so choose, to walk a new path. I personally would like to not do that, so I do the study. I apply certain teachings in my life. I try to test the ageless wisdom. He says to do it. Test it. Why not? And that's a sacrifice. That comes with a lot of sacrifice of certain things that you would do on an ordinary level in this age of distractions. There's many distractions. And you should be able to lay upon the altar of sacrifice for the aiding of your brethren anything that you regard as, something that you're tied to. Not in the way that you don't love things or find value in things, but you just understand the greater scheme of things. You can see which path, if it's on the path or not. Anything that's not on the path, it can be released because you have committed to the plan and discipleship or this mentorship. Okay. Could all who read this book see the results of such a united effort, there would emerge a group activity intelligently undertaken, which would achieve great things. So many people run hither and thither after this individual or this piece of work or that, and working with lack of intelligent coordination, achieve nothing and no group results. But united group effort would eventuate in an inspired reorganization of the entire world and the elimination of hindrances. Again, when you're in this flow, you don't have that struggle. You don't have that lack mentality. If your first thought when I say that is that that's impossible, check your premises, as Ayn Rand would say. What paradigm are you operating from? If you look at a computer that's brand new, clean, pure, doesn't have any software uploaded on it yet, it just has a brain, right? It's a model for humanity, the human being. What programs are you downloading and clogging up your new computer with? If you could empty out all that programming and put new templates, put new software, put new programs on there, are you going to choose the programs that say that you need to have hindrances in your life? It's a simple question, but we do have frameworks that do manifest in our life. This is a fact. This is proven. Law of attraction. These are the studies that teach that this is not some just kind of woo-woo concept. It's actually applicable and testable. And this is part of the work that I want to do, is to prove that. So when you program your computer, when you empty out your consciousness of the programming that has been and align to a new paradigm, you choose the software that you're putting on your system. You choose. And then you see the results. One of the results is magic and flow and freedom and ease, prosperity, light, love, power, and the plan unfolding on earth. I'm with that. So it says, many people run hither and thither after this individual or this piece of work or that, working with a lack of intelligent coordination. This is not your fault. We've just been operating with a lack of intelligent coordination. With united group efforts with that 2/3 of humanity who is on the path, you will eliminate hindrances in your life. There will be the making of real sacrifices and the giving up of personal wishes and desires in order that group purposes may be served. Do not be afraid of the sacrifices, because you will see that in most cases those sacrifices were your vices and have actually held you back. They were your hindrances. So when you release those things, there's actually so much more that you gain. It's just freeing up space for all that you deserved and all that you had been manifesting and hoping for, but actually keeping at bay because of your paradigm and programming, which matched society. So we were locked into a hive mind psychology, hive mindset, which says that lack and limitation and competition and greed and those things were the rule of the day, right? This is what we're unlocking as we rise in consciousness. Above all, there must be the elimination of fear. With this I have dealt at length in a treatise on white magic, and have given likewise certain rules and formulas for its control. How many who have read the teaching profited by the information imparted? Will you not, with determination, and because the world cries out for help, cast away fear and go forward with joy and courage into the future? There has been behind all the books which I have written a definite purpose and a planned sequence of teaching. That right there made me instantly think of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, where you have to have a chief aim in life backed by a burning desire and a definite purpose. It's a magical formula for manifestation. Again, right here it says, behind all of the books I've written, there's been a definite purpose in a planned sequence of teaching. So this is where it really resonated for me, because there's an order that it outlines here for reading their books. Now, Alice A. Bailey has a long list of books. If I could just jump over here really quickly and show that inside page right here, that's the list of all the writings. And it's not necessarily in that order that it outlines here, which was very interesting for me, because I was reading esoteric astrology. So I'm really on that path right now, really digging deep into my birth chart and different how to read charts and things like that. But still, with all that, I'm not ready for that yet. Something told me, and then this instantly clicked. It's like something locked into place. And it's talking about the sequence, because this has been, that intention has been set. That magical intention has been set. So it says again, in each book that I've written, there's been a definite purpose and a planned sequence of teaching. It may be of interest to you if I trace them for you. The first book issued was Initiation, Human and Solar. I don't have that book yet. I need to get it. This book was intended for the average aspirant to lead him on from where he was to a vision of an organized band of teachers who were seeking to aid humanity, and incidentally himself, and to give some idea of their technique of work and the modes of procedure. Second is Letters on Occult Meditation, indicated how these teachings could be reached and the discipline of life that the treading of the path involved. A lot of this is meant to scare you, right? A book isn't written that's this big for the faint of heart. So the first step of teaching is to look for an earnest student. The first step is to see who's worth your time, right? Can you focus? We're going to teach you how to focus. We're going to see if you can go the distance. A master is not going to waste their time. A mentor is not going to waste their time. It's the same concept here. So the first step is to scare you, basically. I don't want to deal with someone who's not ready. This isn't for everybody. We're speaking to 2/3 of people, right? So 3 people watch this. I'm ready that I expect that 1 will click off instantly, 2 may stick around. Of that still, there's still more discerning and churning and getting down to the core of who that group vibration is. And you don't have to force and push. It just will happen. It just will flow, because it will resonate with those who it's meant to resonate with at the time when it's meant to happen. It's just how it works. It's the intention that was set, which I loved, and I wrote down that magical intention. I feel it as I read the words. So it continues on. These 2 are especially for aspirants. Mentioning those 2 books. Initiation, Human and Solar, and Letters on Occult Meditation. Third is a treatise on cosmic fire. It is an entirely different category. In the last analysis, it is for the guidance of the initiates of the world, and will lift the aspirant's eyes away from himself and his own growth to a vaster conception and a universal ideal. The mark of the initiate is his lack of interest in himself, in his own unfoldment and his own personal fate. And all aspirants who become accepted disciples have to master the technique of disinterestedness. Their eyes have also to be lifted away from the group of workers and from the hierarchy which they constitute, and to be fixed on wider horizons and vaster realms of activity. The great creative plan, its laws and technique of unfoldment, and the work of the builders of the universe was dealt with, emerging out of the mass of imparted facts, and underlying all the teaching was the idea of a great life with its own psychology and ideas. Said all that to say, Get out of things, get out of boxes. There's a magical practice of comparing, the circle, the box with the circle. So putting boxes around things, living in a very edgy society, our houses and everything, four walls, versus the space, living space of some of these more creative, artsy people where they build homes with curves and round edges and round shapes or triangles and pyramids, and that the energy of different shapes. We have lived in a boxed in mindset, and likewise we see a lot of boxy formations of things around us. This is also a mental and psychological manifestation of mental entrapment of our psyche. So this is talking about getting out of those boxes as far as labels and interests and focus. Instead of being narrow-minded, become expansive. Understand that it's not about you. It also says it's not just about the group. It also says it's not about the masters and the hierarchy. It's about the overall plan and seeing how big and how beautiful and how large and vast that is, because it offers a great life with its own psychology, esoteric psychology and ideas. So we're moving towards new states of consciousness, new societal systems, new paradigms, embracing the divine feminine, the matriarchy, not moving entirely to a matriarchy and denouncing patriarchy, understanding the value of the divine masculine, understanding the value of the divine feminine, moving towards atonement, at one-ment, being in unity consciousness, the gifts of unlocking our full psyche. You've heard them say that you can only use such and such % of our brain. When are we going to endeavor to use more of it? It's through these teachings. 2/3 will walk the path, 1/3 will stay behind. So we have to fix our minds on wider horizons and vaster realms of activity. It was an attempt to give a synthetic picture of the unfolding mind of God as it works out its plans through the lesser sons of mind. Again, that goes with the idea of this offering these teachings, underlying all the teachings is an idea of a great life with its own psychology and ideas, an attempt to give a synthetic picture of the unfolding mind of God. Would the mind of God not be always seeking perfection, as you see modeled in nature? Plants grow up, and things get more beautiful, or things flow in cycles. They don't stay bad. The weather doesn't stay bad. Who's to say what bad weather is? It's just an experience, but we are moving towards, as a species, a higher state of consciousness. We've always been working for ways to improve things, improve our ability to communicate, the speed and flow of information, exchange of ideas and information, the advancement of, different technologies and things like that. But we've done so recently. We've let a few people think and do the work to flow us a portion of what's available to us. So they dangle a carrot. They give us series after series of an iPhone instead of series after series of self-development techniques that can unlock our psyche and help us to break out of outdated systems where we need someone to sell us a phone and we can't just make one ourselves, or we need to pay for electricity and not use the free energy systems that are around us. And instead, those who are creating free energy systems are being bullied and having their laboratories smashed up, or people go missing and are dying. These are realities of the old paradigm which we cling to when we refuse to look at the work of the masters, or the work of the teachers, or the work of the mentors who have come before us and have outlined that everything that's setting the stage for where we are right now at the end of an age. Whether you want to see it or not, we're at the end of an age and we're getting ready to move into a new way, a new world order. But that's 1/3. My accents come. That's the 1/3. You want to be with the 2/3. Their new world order, our new world order. Or I don't know if you're with me, wherever you are, but I'm with the 2/3, okay? Let's just be clear. So moving on. In symbolism, and archaic phrases, it veiled the truths and principles which lie at the root of the creative process, and in its entirety is beyond the grasp of the advanced student. So even the most advanced student at this point has been not able to fully grasp the creative process. People don't know how to manifest, so they've been reckless with their thoughts. They haven't really connected the idea that this is a fact. Our thoughts become our reality. There's more to the story than what we have understood or have been led to believe. And then the information has been presented to us, and yet we haven't dug deeper. We haven't chosen to go further. We haven't become earnest, sincere, and responsible for our own lives. But it's okay. The time is now. At the same time, it is a most valuable compendium of information and will serve to convey truth and to develop the intuition. This is Philip speaking on the book, A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. The last book, A Treatise on White Magic, is a parallel volume to A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Just as the first dealt with the psychology of deity, the work of the macrocosm, and the laws whereby the solar logos works, so this book constitutes a treatise on the psychology of the Son of God and the work of the microcosm. All that's just saying big picture and then more exact and particular small picture, focusing on the self. How can I create magic, white magic, in my life? Manifest in accordance with the plan. Treatise on Cosmic Fire, big picture, talking about the hierarchy, the great plan, how to develop the intuition, how to convey truths, all of these things. Large picture, small picture. As above, so below. It says that these two books are parallel volumes. It intimately concerns his place in the larger whole and is of practical application to daily life in that whole. I have also aided AAB, Alice A. Bailey, in getting out a translation of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is a bridging book intended to show the aspirant the rules whereby the light within him may be developed and the power of the intuition be brought to bear on all problems and on the phenomena of life itself. This book was given the name The Light on the Soul. How freaking amazing is that? I want that book. Someone send me that book, The Light on the Soul. Buy it for me, please. And thank you. Because in that book alone, you can develop the power of your intuition and have that be brought to bear on any problem and the phenomena of life itself. That's quite an offering. I'm down. Here I am fulfilling my intention to write a book on the subject of the 7 rays. So now we're getting to this one. This one is Esoteric Psychology. It's built on the 7 rays. It's a book about the 7 rays. This topic has always been of real interest for students, but about these rays little is known. We know from the secret doctrine that they are the building forces and the sum total of all that is in the manifested universe, but their effect on the human kingdom and their essential quality and nature remain as yet a mystery. It will be necessary for me to avoid the cosmic note, if I may so call it, for I seek to make the information of practical value to the student and to the intelligent reader. I shall therefore approach the subject entirely from the standpoint of the human family and deal with the subject in terms of the psychological values, laying the foundation for that new psychology which is much needed, and so dealing primarily with the human equation. Oh my God, I got something burning in my eye. I have to stop this and do another one. I'm so sorry. I'm going to finish up later. I'm winking at you.